And always, 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 we must make, and we have to look at it from every angle, and we have no choice. We must make America respected again. We must make America truly wealthy again, and we have to, and we will make America great again. And if we do that, perhaps this century can be the most peaceful and prosperous the world has ever known. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, Donald Trump spelling it all out, and as probably only a businessman could, trying to connect that we have to rebuild our military and rebuild our economy. The two go hand in hand. He went on to say a great country also takes care of its warriors, and he, as president, would do that. He immediately said our problem when it comes to how we deal with foreign crises is we don't see it through the prism of our own interests and what is good for America ultimately being good for the world. He had said as well that Obama-Clinton interventions, obviously joining Hillary Clinton in with that as his former Secretary of State, the presidents, have created confusion and disarray, and that I, referring to himself, will end that. He continued that allies are not paying their fair share, and we, as a result, are bearing almost the full course and the cost of that. He said only 4 of the 28 NATO countries are spending the required 2% on defense that is asked of each and all. Only 4 of the 28. Again, he kept pounding the theme that we as a country have to do more, but we have to expect more out of our friends and our allies. He also said of ISIS, it will end under my watch. That radical Islam, unless you call it like it is, unless you name the enemy, you will never solve the problem. So much else there. Ben Collins, Amber Smith. Ben, to you, what do you make of what he was saying?
So if I look at it from a broader perspective, there were a couple words that he said and a couple of themes that I think could kick off. One, he said, we need to reinvigorate Western values and institutions across the globe. The second thing is he said America will always, should always be the peacemaker. So there's a very big difference in policy and certainly from a military perspective in terms of peacemaking and peacekeeping. He talked about bringing regional stability into the Middle East. When I heard that statement, I realized that you're talking about that would necessitate having a deal or an agreement between Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia, and Turkey. That would be an extremely difficult thing to do. But broader speaking, it's how far are you going to take that notion of peacemaking? Peacemaking is, you've got two adversaries and we're going to go in there and make the peace. That to me sounds like boots on the ground. That's kind of the Kosovo, model. Spreading Western institutions and values, that's a hair away from saying we're going to bring democracy to the world, kicking a door in at a time. Now, I don't think that's what where he as deep as he was going with it. But when I start thinking about at least traditional policy positions in terms of isolationism and all the rest, those are kind of the words that I'm hearing. He touched on just about every subject that I had asked for as we talked in the first part before the speech globally. But I think the one thing I'll say and the last thing I'll say, Neil, is that saying that you're going to consider the American worker, and he's absolutely correct in that if we don't have a strong worker, if we don't have a strong middle class, we're not going to have a strong. And so the only thing I would say is let's try not to kick off a trade war with China, because that would have some consequences, I think, certainly on the pockets of those workers in the middle class.
Maybe he's hoping that the threat of it will get them to behave. I think that's the message he's sending there. But I missed out here U.S. Navy Reserve Commander Tom Croce also with us. Commander, I also want to talk about what he was talking about when he talked about those who are supposedly our allies. The countries we are defending must pay for our defense. Our friends are beginning to think they can't depend on us. So two ends of the same argument there. What is he saying to the world? Cough up more or what?
He's giving you his initial bargaining positions. This is going to be a negotiation, is what he's telling the world. This is not just a speech for domestic consumption for policy wonks or politicians. It's a very much a message that he's sending to our allies, our adversaries, and he's saying, listen, if you want to share in the wealth and the prosperity of a new negotiated status quo, that we're willing to be partners and allies, but understand that American security and American interests are going to come first in a Trump presidency. So I think he's outlined a peace through strength strategy. He will certainly use the influences and the articles of American foreign policy. It sounds like in almost a Theodore Roosevelt way, sailing the Great White Fleet around the world.
But saying it in a measured fashion, and a lot of people are already making, I notice when I go to these social media sites as he was speaking, they talk about low energy, measured. He wasn't really being loud. I think that was by intent, Amber. Do you get a sense here that he is wanting to have an element of unpredictability in his message, the tone notwithstanding, that even when he referred to ISIS, we have to be unpredictable? I'm not going to spill the beans via press conference how I'm going to deal with them, but trust me, I will. Is that good enough?
That speech that Trump just gave was exactly what the nation and what the world needed to see out of him. They saw a leader. They saw someone that was presidential. And they saw someone that our allies will be able to trust and that our adversaries will be able to fear, something that they haven't seen in the past 8 years. So I think this is going to be a big plus for Donald Trump with the speech that he just gave. This is what has been lacking from his campaign so far, because we've seen the petty nonsense, the throwing around word games. And now I'm sure this was the strategy in terms of setting the bar low, that when he actually comes and tries to do the teleprompter speeches, that he actually can do it. His leadership skills shine through, and he looks like that Reagan-esque leader that he's been so hoping people will see in him sooner or later.
All right, guys, I want to thank you very much. Unless we command respect, we will lose our command. Donald Trump, his first major foreign policy address, spells it out. He would be a very different kind of president.